that the plane had gone to the Shannon. The plane had gone to the Shannon. The plane came down on the Shannon. The special branch handled the funeral, handled his coffin, got him into a little mortuary. Whatever happened to that, we don't know. He was brought to Leek Cemetery and buried on a hill, Leek Cemetery. That was on a Saturday. A multitude of Republicans gathered on that Sunday, the following day. And I seen police shivering with fright. There were so many people there. And there was a few revolvers pointing, not at them, but at them. And his body was buried above that hill. And for 2 solid years, the special branch stood under the orders of Cockroach Cooney, Paddy Cooney of Fine Gael, with the help of the Labour Party of Cruz O'Brien and of others. And 2 years after, the Irish Republican Army dug down when the special branch was withdrawn off it, when Fianna Fáil got back in. They withdrew the special branch off it. And withdrawn the special branch off it, the Irish Republican Army dug down. 2 soldiers of the Irish Republican Army dug down, took his remains out of it, and buried him along with McGaughan and the Tobins and others in the Republican plot in Leek Cemetery in Belfast. 1981 was an awful time for the Republican people. Of that hunger strike. And I wish it never happened. I wish it would never happen. And with Bobby Sands and Francis Hughes and Ray McCreasy and Patsy O'Hara and John MacDonald and Martin Husson, Kevin Lynch, Kieran Doherty, Thomas McLeod and Mickey Devine. And above all the hunger strikers that ever there was, of great respects for Mickey Devine. Because Mickey Devine was born in the most published part of Europe. He was born in the Springtown camp in Derry. There were huts that was left behind by the Americans. And that's why they put the Catholics to live in those huts. And that's why he was born in the Springtown camp in Derry. In persecution of the people, he joined an organisation. He was arrested wrongfully twice. And then he was sent off to the H blocks, where there were Bobby and Francis and others, John McLeod and others. He decided that he would go. And he died on hunger strike, Mickey Devine. And I hope and pray to God that I never hear of another hunger striker, or there'll never be another hunger striker who will give his life for Ireland. Because no government, because I would have loved to go to Belfast, up to the maze, with a sledgehammer and bash that door in. And on my bended knees to Bobby Sands and the others to say, don't do it, Bobby. The British wouldn't give in to Thomas Ashe in 1917. And they're not going to give in to you now in 1981. And they're not going to give in to you now in 1981. But unfortunately, the 10 supreme young men died. And they died for Ireland, for an Irish cause. But I mean them all, but that's all I have to say.
Questions and answers of people, would that be alright?
Why not follow me that book? Because you see this book. You can all see this book. It is a black book. And anyone's name goes in that book, they're automatically dead. And make sure that they are. And that's the black book. Now, if anyone has anything to ask me.
Just as an aside, Noel, for those visiting Dublin may not be aware that the names of the hunger strikers from the 80s are recorded on a bridge up in Cabra there.
That's right, yeah.
All of the names.
Yeah, well, I for one, I for one, how war women comes back at you. However, I for one, with Nicky Keogh and others, they put that thing there. But there's more than the 10 died. And when we decided that we would put a stone, a memorial stone, and we put it in Glasnevin Cemetery, it was the first one done to the 22 hunger strikers. And fair play and loving to the people of Cabaret who put that stone there. Who put that stone there. But I'd rather see the 22 instead of 10. Because I like to expose the ones that was let die by Fianna Fáil and by Fine Gael. The three that was let die by Fine Gael, the three that was let die by Fianna Fáil. And I'd like to see that. So as people would know that the British government were not fully responsible for all of the hunger strikers. Any more?
Just could you give a bit of context now about the formation of the Dry Harriers? Because a lot of people mightn't know actually how they came into getting brought into the, how you say, the residence.
The Dry Harriers were set up by Bly. Bly was one of Collins's top men. And he set up a special part of the police. And they were terrorist murderers of the worst description. They done everything that they could against Republican people. And they murdered people. And they got away with it. They got away with that brutal murder. And they carried on. And Dubliner, Shallamass from Dubliner, Shallamass, who was on the Bloody Sunday raid, when they shot them in bed, which they had the right to do, shoot them in bed, and shoot anyone that was with them in the bed either. He was belonging to that group. But the mass, there was a member of the IRA, and after the brutal murder of his brother Noel, he changed his mind from the Free State Army and come back into the IRA, and then became one of the Fianna Fáilers. Became a man that was fairly well known by my people, and often I spoke to him to criticise him, and I told him who I was. I was the son of Neil. The Mass, who sold his shop in Cable Street to pay his debts to the Bookies, with John Mass, with John McGrath, who murdered Noel Mass in Oriel House, along with Frank Thielen and with Philly Burton, who were in charge of Oriel House, murdered Noel. He hadn't joined with those later. He'd done that to his own brother. So therefore, you couldn't ever put a trust in a man like that. But the Bry Harriers were terrorists of the worst description. No matter what they done, it was excused. No matter what they done, it was all excused. Never was any one of them. One of them arrested. He was acquitted. And that was Brockenbank. He was shot in Carty dead. But it was a jokeable kind of a court. He got away with that. or any more. Yes?
Just you touched on Sean Russell, the stories about Sam his death. I read the one on the German U-boat. And Frank Ryan was supposed to be on the same U-boat.
Frank Ryan couldn't be on the same
Right,
U-boat because
yeah.
Frank Ryan died in Dresden
Dresden,
in 1944. He was stone deaf. And he was on the German High Command. Actually, it was a story about him told by a German that he asked Hitler to leave Russia alone at that period of time. That the winter was coming and they had no chance again, the heavy snows and the frost of Russia. But he wanted them to go forward across Europe and occupy England, Frank Ryan. And when Franco was going to execute Frank Ryan, it was the Germans who wanted him out of there and got him brought to Germany. And he was under high command of German decisions, Frank Ryan. When we got his remains back a few years ago and buried them in Glasnevin Cemetery, buried them with Frank in Glasnevin Cemetery, fitting memorial to him in Glasnevin Cemetery. Anything else?
Yeah, I just say that I enjoyed your talk very much, and as we said, there's very little spoken or written about the 40s. My father was interned in the Curragh and often talked to me about it, and my regrets is that I didn't put a tape recorder in front of him, but he often talked about the shooting of Barney Casey and the bombing of the huts.
Yeah, but may I say, I have recorded that on CD. On the CD of, there's more on the CD than what I spoke about here today.
Thank you.
And if anyone is interested in them, they're $5. They're $5. If anyone is interested in purchasing one, I have them there on the counter. Yes?
Well, just ask a question too. You know Frank Ryan himself, you know he's under the German High Command.
Yes?
Now, he served against, he's in Spain fighting against fascism. in Spain.
Yes.
And he ends up in Germany fighting, alongside the fascists. They were on it. He was sort of saying, go to Britain, invade Britain rather than Russia. Which was, Britain was the German sort of politics, socialism and stuff.
That was
Is there a contradiction there?
but that was his ultimate aim against the British. That was his ultimate aim against the British, him and Sean Russell.
Why use fascism against them?
Well, I don't understand. I don't know the reason why. I understand, but I understand what you're talking about. What his want was to get arms into Ireland and to Germany to attack England, which an Englishman said to me, and you had to cross the channel. But England wouldn't have no army, no nothing to hold them Germans back if they had to come across. And perhaps maybe it was a good thing that they didn't come across into it. Because God knows they might have come into here and took here as well. So perhaps it was a good thing that they didn't invade England. When I was speaking in St. Pancras Town Hall in London, that was one of the marks were made. little Desmond Greaves, Callahan of the Labour Party, others were there when I spoke in St. Pancras Town Hall. They were there. And that was one remark that I made. And one of them said to me after, for the deep Republican, you're for the deep Republican to come out with that statement that you were delighted in a way that they didn't come across. Because he could have come into here. Could have come into here. Because when they let a bomb go in May 1941 on the North Strand, look, there was 30-something people killed in that, 37 people killed in that. What would it be if he had have let go? We had have, even to the poets, if we had to give the poets, he could have turned on us. Could have turned on us, Hitler. So therefore there's a thing that we all must agree that I often do say that England wasn't to blame of everything that happened since that treaty in June 1921 in Hans Crescent Hotel in Knightsbridge, while it was signed. It wasn't signed in Downing Street, it was signed at Hans Crescent Hotel. And then that treaty, after that treaty, the Free State Army, the government at that time, carried out more brutal atrocities than the British. I was born just down the street down here, down North King Street. And the old buildings is put down, I seen all the bullet holes. At the corner of the street where I live in, Cobblestone Street, there was a public house there. And Mr. Connolly and Mr. Hickey and his son were brutally murdered. They were unarmed civilians. And the corner of North Ann Street, there was 4 more brutally murdered by the Black and Tan, by the British Army. By the British Army at that time. But I still say, I'm glad that Hitler didn't come across into England. But I wouldn't mind destroying our airfields and stuff to that effect. That's one thing I would agree with. But not to come across in full force battle order and occupy that, because we could have been also occupied.
In a sense, no, they were coming home in that 3 of their greatest possessions are German, their royal family, their English language, and their Protestant faith.
Yeah. Pardon?
No,
Not having a point of it.
can I just say, in regards to Nazism and the Germans coming over to Ireland, we had fascism along from Rome, and they made it a huge.
I can't hear you properly.
I'm sorry,
You might have it down.
With regards Germans and Nazism coming over to Ireland, and I would say that looking at the Catholic Church, Rome and fascism came to this state and had a huge impact on the society, and I think they influenced the Free State in turning into a fascist state, and that's what we became. We became a fascist state. Everything you described through the successive generations, the 40s and 50s, 60s, they're all parallel fascism in every context. So I would say, whether the Germans came over or not, we got them through through the Catholic Church. So we, instead of Nazism, we had fascism.
Well, I am a devout Catholic person.
Yeah.
But there was very brutal treatment enforced on the people by the Catholic Church. And that great woman that was buried there the other morning, I can't think of the lady's name at the moment, they were exposed an awful lot of it. And Edmund de Valera used the Catholic Church, and he did use it, and especially with quiet.
Or did the Catholic Church use de Valera?
No, I'll finish and then I'll come back to that.
Okay.
De Valera would be quiet when he was in trouble. Anytime he was in trouble, anyone who would stand up against Fianna Fáil was branded as a communist. You were automatically branded as a communist. That is a thing that I always disagreed with a section of the Catholic Church, and I still disagree with a section of the Catholic
In the
Church.
47 Constitution.
Yeah, who in his constitution, he written in his constitution a Catholic state.
A special privilege.
He doesn't. He should have written into it non-congregational estate.
Yeah.
That's what he should have done, instead of using the Catholic Church for his own benefit and his own gain. And when I remember distinctly a priest grabbing a hold of me by the throat nearly, when I shouted devil era, a few words of devil era, and the priest grabbed me by the throat. And another priest turned around and he says, "Put your hands off that jumpler. Put your hands off him." He pushed him away because I only spoke the truth. I only spoke the truth. But no person, no matter who they are, has the rights to stand against anyone's religion. No one has that right to stand against Catholic religion. Now, the Catholics in the north are not bitter against Protestant people. But there's a section of it above there in that north of the Ardents who are bitterly against the Catholic Church. Bitterly against the Catholic Church. But they don't know, as far as I know, they are a nickel crowd. Because I know several Protestant people in the north of Ireland, I do be in it. And they're lovely, genuine people. 1942, I should have spoke about that. George Plant was a Protestant, a Tipperary man. He was a Protestant. They had him executed, an innocent man, in 1942. 1942.
Now, let's come back to the Catholic Church. Before the 22 treaty and the whole thing, they hadn't got the impact in this country that they had since the treaty. I think they used, and in fact, I'm not talking about religion itself. It's what I'm on it, it's correct religion, the whole Christian faith. What I'm talking about is the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, men of the Catholic Church, who used the troubles, the whole thing, to put a restrictive fascist state in place, which they controlled.
So they did.
They controlled the laws, they controlled the whole social justice of the country.
So they did.
So they have to be brought to book. Instead of the Brits, as you say, they're not to blame for everything. You made that point on numerous occasions. The Catholic Church had a major part in this country. They manipulate society, they manipulate people, and they imposed, they came along, as I say, replaced republicanism with fascism. That's exactly what they're doing, and it hasn't been brought today.
See, the Catholic Church
And the education
excommunicated, as you probably would
Yeah, excommunicated people before the when those Father Albert, who was one of the prominent men of the 1916, along with three other clergymen who was with the men when they were getting executed in Kilmainham, Paddy Pearson and the rest of the comrades in Kilmainham. And when Father Albert turned around and gave absolution to prisoners before they were taken out to be executed, and prayed for them, and some of those prisoners were taken out without a priest, without a clergyman, and shot willfully. But Father Albert and Father Dominic O'Connor were sent out of the country, exiled out of the country. exiled out of the country just because they wouldn't agree with the state. And in 1958, their bodies were sent back, brought back, one from Africa and one from America, and buried below. But they should have been buried in Glastonbury Cemetery, but they were buried, people didn't know until a couple of months after the remains had been brought home, and they buried down Rocherstown in Cork. But to agree with you, no, to agree with you,
Individual men, good men,
yeah,
walking within the parameters of the Catholic Church, that was a good man. We're not talking about the system. What's your opinion that on the context that we evolved into a fascist state? Would you agree with those parallels?
no, a certain section of the Catholic Church at that period of time, covered up more cruelty and stuff to that effect, and it's still in the logbook. It's still in the logbook of cruelty to children, and thanks God that it was exposed. That it has been exposed of these orphanage of little children, of which I say anyone that's found guilty, any Christian brother, priest, Protestant, Jew, any religion, no matter what religion it is, that's found guilty of satisfying themselves on children, on little children, they should be,
Seán.
their names should be on YouTube and on the media. Paedophile. I'm branded as a paedophile.
Paedophile
That's-
is a paedophile is a paedophile. No,
Yeah,
that's murder.
that's my opinion of.
Tell the story, Noel, about your friend who lost his hand with a grenade there.
Oh yeah.